Well, hello everybody. Here we are in episode 8 of our Hammarlund 129X. And while I have the front plate out being refinished, there are still a few things that I want to do on this thing as I prepare for that. So the first thing I did was I took out the speaker. Let me show you this thing close up. So you could see here that the felt cover, the dust cap, is pretty much gone. And the speaker somehow feels like it was pushed out. Obviously someone put their hand in there at some point or shoved something in there. You'll see there's a massive crack here, and it's generally in a shape that can't be repaired. Taking a look on the bottom side, you'll see that it's loaded with rust, and you can read a little bit about the label there, right there. This is a speaker that was made in 1960, I believe, is what I did on the research. And the way you can figure that out is by looking at the serial number. Actually, it was 22 is the code, and it was made in the 6th day of the year. And I gotta look that up. Anyway, that's how you figure it out. And you'll see it's pretty beat up and it's not going to be usable. So I'm going to show you what I've done with the speaker cabinet, and we'll get to that. But before I do that, I want to experiment with one other thing. So let me set that up, and I'll be right back. Okay, so what we're doing here is I want to see what the S meter is really doing there. So if you look over here, I've got the meter leads connected to the 2 wires that go to the S meter. And I want to see, what the voltage is. I want to just, observe the behavior and how it really works. So I've got the wires connected to this analog multimeter. So what we're going to do is we're going to power it up, and we're going to watch what this thing does. I have it set to the 250 volt DC scale, and we're going to power it up, and let's see what the needle does. So the needle is rising up, and it's sitting at about 225 volts DC, and you see the needle just coming down.
Any solutions?
And the radio is now playing.
Real suffering going on.
Now, let me lower this so you can hear me. As I tune the stations, you're going to watch that needle go up and down. So let me zoom in a little bit on that.
Real lives, real suffering, real problems that really need to be solved. I don't hear any solutions.
So as I tune this thing, watch the needle.
Yes,
So it goes down almost to nothing. Let me bring a station in. And you'll see we're at about 55 volts there. And on the radio, if I turn this this antenna comp, you'll watch the needle there. See how it changes? So there's a direct relation to the voltage coming out of that tube and the antenna signal strength. Let's bring this back to the station where I was before.
And liberation of the individual, creation of free thought, free speech rights. Right? So, I think we have just this ignorance that has now extended.
So on this particular station, I have a fairly good signal, obviously. I'm sitting somewhere around 65 volts. And let me turn that antenna comp.
And attempts to allow communist professors to have a right to express.
And there I am. I'm probably at around 70 right now. So that meter that they have on there is really just measuring the signal strength, and it's driving the voltage to the meter, which is really, really cool. So I didn't know much about it. I do now. But let me show you the next thing. So I remember when John from Arkansas did his radio, he was having a problem with heat on the transformer right there. And he was putting his temperature gun on it, and I think he was getting 200 degrees. So I wanted to test mine and see what it's doing. So let me see if I can get this within range of the camera. So the first thing we're going to do is the transformer. And that's coming in at 82 degrees. Let me try the bell housing. 79, nice and cool. Let me try the output transformer. 79. Let's try that rectifier tube. So we're up at 160 degrees. I'm sure it'll get hotter than that if I turn the volume up. And then the 6v6 output tube. About 150. Now, this experiment is important because, as you recall, there's a bulb that goes inside the S meter housing. And if you remember in one of my previous videos, I mentioned that I don't want to put a closed, sealed unit there because there's nowhere for the heat to escape. If you remember, the original housing has that metal with the slits in it, right? So let's measure the temperature of the bulb and see what we're getting. Let me move the camera here so you can see it. It all depends where you put it. Looks like I'm getting about 94 or so, 96. So think about that cavity for a second. You'll have 100 degrees hanging out in there, right, with nowhere to escape because there is no opening. It's enclosed in. So that's why I'm going to leave the original design in there with those slots so that at least there's some airflow and that heat can escape. If I don't do that, I think what will happen is the face of that S meter will eventually deteriorate from the heat, and that's why I think they turn brown. So the one I have also turns brown. Of course, age is not helping either, but I'm going to leave that design. Let's just check the rest of the tubes real quick, and the next one we're going to check is the OC3 tube, and that's 100 degrees, and then these metal tubes aren't anything special, 90 degrees. Back to that rectifier tube. We're at 185 there, I just saw. You got to hit it in the right spot. So so that's the story with the temperature on these things. And of course, if I was cranking this thing loud,
to be heard. Whereas NPR,
like that, I'm sure this
and
temperature is
TS
going to go
are
up.
Upper middle class,
190,
bourgeois,
195.
These people
Yeah, so it's going to go up
these
depending on the
working
volume.
class, okay.
So let me set up the next shot because there's one more thing I want to show you in this particular episode. Be right back. Okay, so I want to talk about the tone mod that's in this unit. If you remember, I covered this in a previous video, and I think I gave out wrong information, so I want to correct that today. So the first thing I want to cover is what's the tone mod made of, what's the correct wiring, and then we're going to do a little experimentation and see how it really works. So what you'll see here, the 6v6 output tube, there's basically a wire that runs up to the top of the chassis from pin 3 and comes up to the top. And you'll see there's a 500K potentiometer here. That's what's in the unit. So this wire that comes from the 6v6 pin 3 is going to one side of the wiper. Okay? The other side of the wiper is going to ground. The center, the wiper, is going to both switches, here and here, the center pin of the switches, the on position. Okay? Coming off of the other side of this switch is a 0.001 cap, 600 volts to ground. Coming off of this switch is a 0.005 cap to ground. And then coming off of here, obviously that goes to ground. So that's the configuration that's in there. So if you think about it, what's really happening here? So when you have the pot turned all the way down, it really has no bearing. It's going to play the way it always plays if there was no tone control in there. Let's assume for a moment you open up the pot all the way and you have just this switch on. Okay? What it's going to do is it's going to route the signal through the ground to the 0.001. You're going to get a different tone. Same way a guitar amp works. It's exactly the same way. If you open this switch, you're going to get a 0.005 and a 0.001. So you're going to get a completely different tone. If you close this switch and just have that one open, you're just going to have a 0.005. The bigger the capacitor, the more bass you get. More muddy kind of sound. The smaller the capacitor, the more brightness you're going to get. Okay? So now that we've covered this, let's get to some fun experiments. Be right back. Okay, so what I've done here to experiment is I put a 500K pot there. I put in a switch here and a switch here. And I have them all wired with gator clips the same way I just showed you. So on this side, right here, I've got actually 0.006 because I didn't have a 0.005. On this side is a 0.001. So everything is wired just like it is in that diagram. And all I really need to do to get this working is move this wire, this white wire, which is the ground network, to the ground right here. And I have all these grounds tied together right here. Those are all the grounds that are on, that go from the switches to the caps. Then I have to take this black wire and connect it to that wire that's coming up from the 6v6. Pin 3. Just like that. Okay? Let's power this thing up and see what we get. I'm going to turn the switches off. All switches off. Pot is down to 0. Let's turn it on. Let's give it a moment to warm up.
Him a blue-collar billionaire, Don Jr. I think that's
Now
an
you'll
accurate
notice
description.
I'm playing through the speaker.
You know, look, I mean, I keep telling
And I'll
people,
flip that around after this and show you what's
an
going on with the
election
speaker.
occurred. Okay, this is a
So,
democratic country,
you can
and
hear the
now
sound.
we are waiting
gonna
to
turn
see
both
whether
switches
this
on.
administration can govern and produce the results that have been promised. Okay, so I
So
simply
you hear
don't
a
understand
drop in tone, I hope.
the strategy of,
Let me turn
my
the
party,
switch all
Democratic
the way up.
Party, in not coming
Did
up
you
with
hear it
any
get bright?
solutions to the problem.
Obstruction,
for which
that's it.
Little muddy.
the voted.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Little
not
bright.
a good narrative, you know, and they seem
I had to change my
incapable of
battery.
building consensus
So
around
I've got the pot all the way up, and I've got the two switches turned on.
Republican politicians have for years
So now we're going to turn one off.
being able to articulate any kind of foundational values. They've kind of left that.
You'll notice when I
radio.
turn
I
the
think
pot
that's
all the
one
way
of reasons
down,
for the
it does
success
get a
of
little
radio.
muddier,
It
but
kind
not
of
as
fills
deep.
the gap, right? Whereas the Democrats,
bright. It's hard to tell
party of
without music,
Hollywood,
but
the party of the
let's
TV
turn this one
networks
off.
and glitz and glam, and so the Democrats have a great line. I mean,
Nothing.
they're able
Let's turn
to
this one on
produce
only.
very slick kind of propaganda, but then they don't follow with
And
the
you'll see there's a
results. So
degree
the
of cutoff of
problem
the
is we
high
have, like,
there,
gap between the
and you'll notice
parties.
it's mostly
One is
more
interested in
bassy.
actual practical reality.
Just turned it up, and you heard that brightness come in.
Almost mute.
Now, let me see if I can find a music
to
station.
present a program or to counter, in fact.
I know there's one up here somewhere.
So everything is unique and requires.
There's a commercial.
That's why they're environmental.
Here's a great example.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
Hear the trouble? Just by turning that switch on. Let's turn it off.
Savage.
Attention, this message is for everyone suffering from back pain. If you're driving in your car right now, I'm sure.
Of course, the music stopped. But that's how you. That's how I'm going to test it. Now I'm going to put in some various substitutions for those caps, and see what I get as the best sound. But I'm probably going to end up using those. So I've showed you the diagram how to wire it. It's one wire to the chassis right there, the 6v6 pin 3. Very, very simple. And then you've got this this connection here with the two switches, which quite honestly, I think there's a marginal difference between those two switches. I want to try to make it more extreme. So I may use something like a 0.001 and maybe a 0.1 and see what I get, just to balance it out. So let me go try that and I'll be back.
I want you to send executive order.
Okay, what I've
that will
done here
roll
is I
back
put
restrictions
a
on oil drilling in the
0.1
Arctic.
capacitor.
Mr. Trump says
I've got
at a
the
White
switch
House
off,
signing
and
ceremony.
I've got the pot all the
today
way
we're
down.
unleashing American energy
turn the
and
switch
clearing
on.
the way for thousands and thousands of high-paying
Wow,
jobs.
gets really, really muddled, but watch what happens.
This is SRN News. What's happening in Northeast Florida? WPOB AM.
So I have a way to control it. I can go halfway there. And let's turn this one on.
Standoff in the Oceanway area has ended peacefully. Someone was shot earlier today on Cedar
So it
Point
helps to
Road.
balance it out. So I get some lows on this side, and I get some highs here.
And it
actually sounds pretty good, but I have the pot all the way up.
Traffic from Atlantic
So I think I may have to go a little bit lower on
There
that.
was a crash with injuries near Beach Road.
Watch what happens when I turn it off.
Took out live electrical lines. JEA got everything repaired just after 7, and the road was real.
Just like that.
He was fighting.
On, muddy, and the volume's all the way down.
County corrupt.
Off.
A man said
So
he
we know the
walked in
switch
on
is
another
working.
man talking to his girlfriend about
Anyway,
sausage
I hope
in
this
a
helps.
sexually
Let me show you the
provocative
speaker, and I
way.
think we
He
could
put
wrap
the
this
guy
one
in a
up.
chokehold, and the restaurant manager
Okay, so here's our speaker. Let's flip it around. And you'll see that I've got the Jensen speaker mounted inside. I've got some glare coming in the window here. And I don't have anything wired to it yet, but it looks really sweet in there. I did paint this cabinet. This cabinet had a little bit of rust on it, so I did paint it. And it's in great shape. And it sounds great. These little Jensen speakers are really, really good. I've used them in some, Fender Champ guitar amps, and they have some really nice highs and lows. So so I've got my speaker all set. I'm going to do something with these screws, and that's all set. So now I'm just waiting for that faceplate to come in. I'll mount the tone controls that I showed you. I'll mount the meter, and we'll see where we are. So I hope this helped, this little episode with the S meter and with the tone control and with the speaker. Looking forward to getting that front so I can continue on this thing. Aside from that, everyone have a great night, and thanks for watching.